Welcome back to the Zyori Podcast. Hello, and thank you for joining us here on podcast number 75. Wow, already at the milestone of the big 7-5. Next up, the big 100. Man, we got to plan something special for the next podcast. But hey, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. That's still another 25 podcasts to go. Jesus Christ. 25 hours of podcast material. That's a lot to really think about. Today's podcast should be good stuff. We're doing it at a weird hour. It is the 6th of July here on the 2015. Yeah, that's the year. It's about 10 p.m. here on the Pacific Coast. 7 a.m. for those of y'all on the CEST. Weird time for a podcast. I'm usually not an evening podcast kind of guy, but my schedule got all fucked-a-rooney today. I took an afternoon nap. You know, I did the old thing I used to do where I wake up early, have black coffee, get in the zone, and have an amazing day for like the first 5-6 hours of my existence. Don't eat anything, just enjoy the appetite suppressant of the caffeine, and then come like 2 o'clock-ish, 3 o'clock, 1 o'clock, somewhere around there, depending on when you get started, you crash. You have low blood sugar, your caffeine rush is done, you feel just awful from not having any nutrition for the entire day, and then you go, I'm so hungry, please, just anything, get in my belly. So what did I do? Naturally, I went to Chipotle. I got a whole salad, devoured the whole fucking thing, watched an episode of The Sopranos. I was out for 2 hours. That's it. Forget about it. Put a fork in me. I'm done. So that just fucked up my whole afternoon schedule. I got a lot of work done in the first half of my day, but the second half has been a whole crazy nightmare. So we were going to stream some fun community-ish games, viewer sub in-houses, but nobody wanted to play, so we just did some ranked stuff. Won 2 games with Dazzle, the best kind of victories. The only Dota stat I give a shit about is my Dazzle win rate, of course. It's down below 60%. Got to get that bitch back up, so pretty excited to win a couple Dazzle games. Felt good. Had some nice Chinese teammates. That was a lot of fun. So what are we going to talk about today? This is just a TI kind of hype podcast. This is the first podcast at the beginning of the vacation before TI. I have nothing else on the docket in terms of like official casting duties or stuff that is going to take up a lot of time until we leave for TI. 2 weeks until we go. I'm shipping off on the 22nd. Today is the 6th, so just 2 days and 2 weeks, and I'll be off to Seattle to see all the Dota people out there, have fun with all my friends, and get all pumped up to cast. So I've got my entire week blocked off before I go, starting around the 14th for just straight get in the zone, study the caster boot camp. We have a stats Bible. I'm going to fucking knock that thing out. I'm going to study all the mechanics I can, everything that Lotus Orb recasts and all this kind of stuff. I have a whole list of things that I want to work out and study and make sure I know to a T. So should be a lot of fun. I don't know who I'm casting with yet. I don't know what I'm casting of the group stage, if I'm casting every day, if I'm doing any of the wild card, the play-in event. Still don't really have too many details around that stuff. So should have plenty of time to stream in the evenings, studying in the morning, and I'm playing in DIRT MAUL 2.0 tomorrow. Very exciting. I was just talking about it on stream leading up to this podcast, so most of y'all should be pretty privy to it, but I'm really pumped up to be included this go-around. Sir Action Slacks having some fun with it. If you don't know what DIRT MAUL is, we talked about it in the last podcast. Basically, streamer casts 5 of their subs/viewers against another streamer's 5 subs/viewers, and they go at it and they go all crazy. And it's called DIRT MAUL because you're supposed to get in the mud and stream snipe and cheat and just go all crazy. You've got Slacks, who's the arbiter of fun, alongside Nigma No Name, and they come up with the game modes and all this other bullshit that you got to do. Should be a lot of fun. I'm playing Sajidine in the first round, and we will be squaring off in about 23 hours, 22 hours, 9 p.m. Pacific on the 7th. I'm going to make a post about it on my website tonight, so you guys will be all aware of it tomorrow. It's the opening round. It's a best of 3 in a single elim bracket, I believe. So hopefully we can take her out nice and early. Quick 2-0 to move into the semis. Actually, no, it's the quarters. I think there's 16 streamers. So yeah, it would be... No, it would be the semis. 16 to 7. The semis. We're going to the semis. Goddamn. Trying to picture brackets in my head. Anyway, it's going to be awesome. Tune in. Enjoy it. We need people. So Team Zyori right here. We need good people. So come. Bring your A game. You have to rotate as well. You can't use the same people in every game. So we just need a large pool of good Dota players that are Zyori viewers. And you got to be adaptable. You got to be ready to play an AD. You need to be ready for an ARDM, maybe an AR curveball. Hey, you never know. Slacks could get crazy. We might have to play an Angel Arena. The rumor has it that they like to go through and see the things that people don't like And then those are the things they make you do. And if anybody watched the stream yesterday, we played Angel Arena for the first time. It sucks ass. It's terrible. They should not be allowed to call that Angel Arena. It is very loosely based on the general concept of Angel Arena in the sense that you do a bunch of PvE shit and lose when you die too much. But outside of that, it's not even close. It's not fun. You kill the little bosses. They give you nothing. You get a couple of little bags of gold. Who gives a fuck? 2 bags of 50 gold. Come on, you get gold. You get like 10 gold every 2 seconds. In Angel Arena, you start with 2,300 gold. You know how, God, you have to, it's so bad. It's just awful. So you never know. We might have to play in it. We might have to play that mode, so just be ready if you want to come out tomorrow. So it's going to be early morning for the Euros and, well, people on the East Coast. Maybe if you're pulling a Tuesday night bender, you can play with us, huh? It's a kind of a weird day for it. So anyway, that's kind of what's on the immediate horizon here. And outside of that, just working on a whole bunch of sort of Zyori stuff and getting a deck together, working on trying to expand the podcast. I'm pretty sure we're going to go to a format coming up very soon here where the podcast will be on a set day close to a set time, kind of a set time window. I was reading about some metrics and some different ways of expanding podcasts, and I think it's worth a try to really commit to a schedule. Even though I've been doing the podcast for over 2 years now, I haven't ever committed to a schedule for it. I've just kind of sat down, it's time to podcast. I'm in the mood for it, so I think I'm going to try to have a little bit more of a schedule and focus on bringing in more guests. Go for that happy medium of 2 Zyori solo podcasts for every 1 with a guest, and mix and match the guests. Sometimes you get a big headlining blockbuster, and sometimes you get somebody you might not know that well, or a personal friend of mine that you've never really heard of, but still have some interesting insight to provide, or we can talk about all sorts of topics. So pretty excited for the future of things that we're working on here, and also pumped up for TI, man. I'm so excited to go, so excited to be included in the casting, but almost more importantly, I'm excited to be at the main event without any actual job duties. It's going to be so much fun to collect some content and to be able to do it in such a manner that I don't have to stress about it. That's a sub. Interrupting the podcast. I like it. I got to try it on track. Thank you, Pioneer. Big heart. Welcome back, buddy. I appreciate it. It's going to be good stuff. I have a camera guy that's going to be coming with me. He's just going to be shooting some content. I'm planning on doing a lot of cosplay stuff. I was talking earlier. I linked one of the old Zyori spotlights that I did with some League of Legends folks. I think I did 6 or 7. It's like still frames, mixes in an interview with some written stuff in between, which is details about the cosplay. I'm really into cosplay in the sense that I think it's a cool portion of the community. I learned a lot about it when I was focusing on it in the League of Legends stuff back in 2013, and it kind of blew me away, the kind of passion of these people, and it took me a while to really get it. I didn't understand why people enjoyed dressing up, why people enjoyed putting so much money and time into costumes, and it took me a while to really understand that that's just an artistic outlet of a different nature, not that far off from spoken word or writing short stories or, being able to draw, making Dota 2 cosmetics, reaching into that creative branch. It's just fashion design. It's just a different medium for you to express yourself. And what better way to express your love for Dota 2? What I really like about it, though, is it builds this side of the community that has a big stake and a big passion in Dota that aren't players. There's all this infrastructure around players, the casters and the tournaments and how all this stuff fits together. But we need this stuff that's out in the peripheral, that environmental stuff. Some of it is merchandise. That's something Valve has done pretty well. At TI4, they had all this really cool shit, the leggings and the little Lena cosplay thing, the Meepo cow, all this cool stuff that get people excited to spend money, excited to just be passionate about Dota and say, hey world, I love Dota. This is my Meepo cow and I'm wearing it to university. Please don't wear it to university. But still, the same concept is there. And cosplay is just part of that peripheral community that helps support the whole thing. It brings people together. Get them excited about that. Whoa, what is this subtype? Oh my good gracious, guys. Mont Sleeps. Thank you so much. Dance Party. Oh, God, this is the most sellouty podcast we've done, but I like it. I usually try to turn this off for the podcast, but it's okay. As much Taylor Swift as we can get into it as possible is good shit. So I'm excited to work with some cosplayers, get some cool footage. I know there's going to be some awesome shit in terms of what people make and turn out for this TI, and going to do some interviews. I've got some other fun ideas planned that I don't want to spoil yet, also because I don't want anybody to take my ideas. It's a competitive market, man. Every Dota website imaginable, every little media outlet, everybody and their mother is trying to make some cool content that's going to get on Reddit and be like, oh, look at all this. You got to stand apart from the crowd. You know, you got to get outside of the noise. It's fun. It's good stuff. So what else are we going to talk about tonight? We're going to talk about betting again. I know I have some new things to talk about. There's some news on that front. Mark Cuban getting into esports. We're going to talk about Ellen Pao a little bit. Come on. Everybody here uses Reddit. Everybody either loves it or hates it. So you're probably opinionated about Ellen Pao in general. If you don't know what I'm talking about at all, she's the interim CEO for Reddit. It's P-A-O is that last name. The first time somebody said Ellen Pao, I thought it was like Colin Powell, like P-O-W-E-L-L. I'm like, oh, who's that? And then okay, I got it. And the World Cup. Let's just go ahead and knock the World Cup out of the way right now. If you were living under a rock, yesterday was the Women's World Cup finals. It was USA versus Japan again. Very exciting matchup. Last Women's World Cup, it was USA versus Japan. Japan won right after the earthquake. It was heartbreaking for American fans across the world, but at the same time, it was really incredible. You know, Japan kind of needed it. It was a big country pride thing. It was really cool. But it was even more awesome this go around to see these two teams make it to the finals. And I swear to God, if you're a football fan, you know, not North American football, I'm talking soccer, the actual footy, and you're in North America, you got to watch women's. Our women's team in World Cup is way better than our men's team. And on top of that, women's World Cup soccer, I think, is arguably better. One, you're watching girls. Come on, it's just better. You're watching them kick the ball, and they're all feisty. I love it. You got Hope Solo. Come on, badass to the core. But what's really great about it is the lack of dives. There's none of this, like, Nancy bullshit, like, oh, God, my knee. Oh, my knee. And then you see, oh, the ref's not looking. Oh, quick, I better get up and get back to the ball because, hey, I'm missing out. All the fake injury bullshit. Fuck that shit. That's pussy shit. That's nonsense. Get out of here. You know, the women, they don't dive. They don't go down like that. When they're down, you know they're fucking hurt. Somebody took a cleat to the knee. Some shit's going down. It's way more tough. It's actually a little bit more brutal. This game, though, one of the best we've seen. It was the highest scoring game in World Cup Women's Finals history at halftime. It was 4-1 going into the half, which is unheard of, especially in women's. The scoring tends to be a lot lower. Coming into the finals, the U.S. Hope Solo had let in a total of 1 goal. She had already let in a 1 goal before the half was over. Like that's how insane it was. The real crazy part, though, is USA was up 2-0 in the first 4 minutes. They scored off the first corner kick, for fuck's sake. They tee off, the ball's going click, 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 click. They get a corner, crossover, bing, bang, right in the back of the net. Boom. Lloyd's just popping it straight up. Okay, great. So they tee off again. They're bopping it around. 4 minutes. Oh, they draw a penalty. It's kind of near the corner, right side of the box in Japanese territory. They cross it over. Bing, bing, boom, right in the back of the net. At this point, the keeper, fucking Kaori's fucking crying. You can see her. She's just like, oh, my. Oh, this is not good. This is not good. We've basically already lost. So they keep playing back and forth. Everyone's talking about it. Twitter's going crazy. Another 5 minutes goes by. They pop another one in the back of the net. Just a nice setup. They pop it in. Bada boom, bada bing. Literally 30 seconds after the next kickoff, Japan gets the ball. It's in enemy territory. Lloyd comes up to the halfway mark. The fucking Japanese keeper is outside of the box. She's like at least got to be like 6 yards in front of the top of the arc. Just sitting there. Who knows what the fuck she's doing? Just looking at the grass, you know, thinking about how much her life sucks because they basically lost the game in the first 5 minutes, right? All of a sudden, Lloyd just ditches it down the field. The keeper's like, oh, shit, oh, shit, oh. It just rolls off the fingers, goes in the back of the net. A 56-yard goal for the 4th goal of the game. It's 4-0 like 12 minutes in. You might as well just turn off the game. It's fucking over. It's complete. It's done. I mean, how do you come back from that? Insanity. Japan scored once in the first half to make it 4-1. That's nice. It was actually a really nice goal. Just across to the middle. The Japanese, I forget, oh man, who was it? I forget which striker it was that scored, but really nice control. Just popped it right over. Nothing Hope Solo could do. Now, what was exciting about this World Cup, though, is it was the last one for Wambach. Is it Abby or Aim? I think it's Abby. Oh, I got to look it up. I can't butcher it. I'm pretty sure it's Abby. Abby Wambach, yeah, she's pretty old. She's like 40. Well, no, she's 35. It's her last World Cup. She was like one of the key strikers in the last World Cup for the women's. Obviously, they didn't win, but she is one goal short of the record for most goals in Women's World Cup. Marta has the record at 15, and I think Wambach is one short at 14. She didn't get to score. She didn't start for this World Cup, so that was a little bit controversial. You know, she's like the big star. They put her in at like the 80-minute mark after it was basically over. But it was nice, the little award ceremony. Her and Christy Rampone got to hold the trophy. I really like women's soccer. It's really great. It's good stuff. Like I said, it's much better than the men's. If you're at all into it and you didn't watch this, you missed out. So, woo, go America. You know, it's cool that it happened on July 5th. You know, you have the 4th. Everyone's going crazy for the 4th of July. We had a nice time here at the BTS house. Everybody hanging out. We grilled up a little bit. We made some wings, some veggie burgers, some regular burgers. It was pretty good. I actually bailed out early and just watched The Sopranos, but it was still a good 4th of July. So you absorb all that freedom, and then the next day it's just like, oh, fuck yeah. The finals are on, America all the way. It was too much freedom, really. I don't know if I would want to do it again. Way too intense. So Abby Wambach kisses wife after World Cup win. You know, I noticed that. After they won, she went running over and she kissed somebody in the stadium, and I thought it was kind of like, oh, that seems more than just like some random fan. That looks like somebody that she likes. So there you go. That's her wife. I'm glad I knew that. Look at that. Gay pride. Go gay people. Look at you. And getting married, making out on national television. Things are really on the up and up for the queer community there. That's really good stuff. Oh, how heartwarming. Just watching the GIF over and over. I'm thinking of that. What's that Adam Sandler movie? Is it Anger Management? When the end, he's like on the baseball field, and Rudy Giuliani's like, "Give her a 10-second Frencher." That's basically what's happening here. It's great stuff. Oh, there you go. Look at the Kappa Prides. Go you. Very nice. So yeah, 4th of July was good. It's a little bit scary in California, honestly, because it's so dry here. Fireworks have a big no-no where we are, except for the very official shit, because it's so easy for fires to start. Especially in our county, there are no fireworks allowed. People are going crazy. They're sitting here. It just sounds like there's gunshots going off all night. Americans are weird with fireworks, honestly. I don't quite get the hype. I'm not going to lie. I'm not a big firework guy. But on the topic of the gay community, this is a nice segue here as we move off the World Cup. There's not a lot of Dota stuff to talk about this week in this podcast as well. I forgot to tell you guys that, except for the Vulcun shit, which we're probably going to get to next on the docket. So anyhow, John Oliver did an amazing segment on the transgender community in not this week's episode of Last Week Tonight, but last week's, not the one that came out yesterday, but yesterday, but the week before. It was right after the news about the gay marriage law going through and how all this stuff is so exciting, and not the law, but the judicial ruling. Very exciting stuff. And his whole segment was how the trans community still has a long way to go. And he talked about some of the numbers for rates of bullying, rates of suicide. There's always a big cost associated with that whole subset of the LBTQ. Is that the right order? Whatever the fuck it is. I just wanted to make mention of it because it was just such a fucking good segment. He starts it off with just this very clear cut, okay, this is how it works. Gender identity and sexual identity are two different things. Gender identity is what you think you need to have versus what you do have in terms of your gear, and sexual identity is who you're attracted to. And he just goes through very quickly and kind of explains the whole thing and kind of clears up a lot of, oh, I wonder. And they show all these clips of folks asking about people's junk, and he makes this great statement about just how it's none of your fucking business, dude. Some transgender people decide to get the operation. Some transgender people don't. The operation is not the thing that makes you transgender. You either are or you aren't. You're either trapped in the wrong body or you're not, and you either have the means and the desire to do yourself over or you don't. It's really good. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you don't understand shit about transgender folks, just Google transgender John Oliver. It'll pop up, that YouTube thing. It's like 15 minutes long. It's really good. It's top-notch stuff. And the reason I bring it up, because it reminds me of one of those just great little snippets that I read on some random blog when I was in like 5th grade. And it resonated with me in a very strange way, in the sense that I still remember. I don't remember shit from 5th grade except this one little quote. And it was that a person's sexual identity is and should be the least interesting thing about them. Now, the irony here is this blog was actually a little bit of like an anti-gay thing, and it was talking about how the person writing it doesn't like the super flamboyant, like, look, I'm so gay. Oh, the whole like the gay culture, the gay pride thing, the real crazy like hyper. They're just fuck off with all that shit. If you want to suck dick, suck dick. If you want to eat carpet, eat carpet. You do you, but who gives a fuck, really? It really shouldn't matter. It shouldn't be a big topic of discussion. Just fucking move on with your life. And I always thought that was a cool approach, making a big, it's good stuff. So anyway, wanted to make mention of it, give a shout out to good content, and I think we'll move on from there. So, let's talk about Vulcun a little bit. We're going to totally switch gears and break into a little bit of esports chatter now at this point. So the Vulcun show, you may or may not have figured out by now, has been officially canceled. Mangos in Tangos, as it was so poorly named. A little bit unfortunate. The viewer numbers were not that great. I think the first episode peaked at like 350 concurrents. The second episode peaked at like actually I forget now, 500 or 600 concurrents. Nothing good. Basically, a good rule of thumb, a very basic metric for that kind of content. 4 figures is where it starts getting to be a worthwhile venture. Usually with those shows, you're not making any money off ad revenue. Then viewer numbers don't matter in the sense of, hey, we really need to roll commercials and make a lot of money tonight. It's more those are impressions because you're selling ads on the show. You're never gonna. It has to be sponsored in some way or another. 100TB or Vulcun or someone that's backing it for the exposure to get their name on really good content. You can't just roll Twitch ads on that kind of stuff. So the viewer numbers need to be there to some degree, and usually those contracts have a floor of around 1,000. We want at least this many viewers per week for the show to work, and that's not unreasonable. If you have a good guest, if you have a top tier player, someone that is relevant in some kind of a drama, or they were just at a big event, you can easily get those numbers. The difficulty is it's getting harder and harder to get those people to come on these shows. One, I wouldn't say because of burnout, but because there isn't even saturation of these kind of shows, but there has been a lot of crappy ones in the past, and a lot of players don't even really like doing that kind of content. You sort of have to ask favors and pull strings, and in a time like this before TI, it can be difficult because everybody's practicing, everyone's focusing on other shit. I thought the episode we did with PPD was really, really good, honestly. I was proud of both episodes we did. I did the content. I mean, doing 2 episodes is really fucking straightforward. It doesn't get hard until you get to like number 5, number 6. That's when you have to start digging deep for the content. You got to scrape the bottom of the barrel a little bit. The saltiest tweets thing I still think is hysterical. I'm glad I got to highlight that and put it on my channel. That was a nice little bonus. So it's a little bit unfortunate. The big reason they pulled out is they want positive branding, and Reddit just fucking hates Vulcun. It's tough. I don't know. I don't really know how to change that perception. It's not even just Vulcun. It's betting in general. It's not even just fantasy sports. It's all betting. And a lot of these websites, a lot of these startups in esports see Reddit as a really vocal, important community, and their mindset is, hey, and this isn't just Vulcun, a lot of these companies say, hey, if Reddit likes us, that's enough people that think we're cool that can, push our content to the next level. Reddit drives a fuckload of traffic, and most people are cognizant of the fact that Reddit represents a very specific niche of the community, which are the hardcore esports consumers for the most part. They're very vocal, and they are certainly a vocal minority. But it's one of the most concentrated communities, and it's a concentrated community of spenders. A lot of the Reddit community is rather mature. A lot of the people that don't post very often, some do on occasion, but people that go on there, lurk, and are sort of minor contributors are the people that are still reached there that you don't see very often when you go to the website and scroll through comments. So you get caught up on all that bullshit that gets downvoted and all the throwaway accounts. That's like the minority of people on Reddit. But both shows were kind of ripped apart on Reddit, and that didn't really go so well. Now the reason I really bring this up is because fantasy betting is a big fucking thing right now in esports. It's by far the biggest subset of our industry that is on the rise. Huge. I've seen so many And some of them silly enough to be asking for like free beta testing. I was on the esports subreddit the other day, and this subreddit has very loose moderation rules. Where it's like, hey, looking for beta testers for this new League of Legends fantasy platform. I've been contacted by two other fantasy platforms that are interested in sponsorship or some kind of promotion, and then I've seen others that are popping up saying, hey, we've got one coming. Look out for insert silly betting name here. I'm counting at least 5 that are planning on launching within the next 1 to 2 months. It is a fucking cash cow. This unicorn shit. That's the other one. Let me see. How does he spell it? I think it's here it is. Oh yeah, the website's already up. Unicorn. Here, I'll link it. This is one of the new ones. Ooh, this is the one we're going to talk about, which is why I want to link it. But just look at how much. Look, here it is. Locked in for week 8. Countdown, 8 days. There's a countdown timer. You can get your bets in. They give you odds. This is the next cash cow. And it's a little bit sad that we're going through the phase right now where a lot of the investment money is not coming in better parts of the infrastructure. It's not going to teams. It's not going to players. And I again, with the cosplay thing, I think it's really important to build this infrastructure around the game and around the sport because you need a way to keep people interested. Just having a cool game that's balanced is not the only way that we're going to keep people interested in Dota 2 and keep the growth of the game trending upwards. You need other things, like Source 2 with custom games is a perfect example of something that keeps people interested in Dota, but gives them something to do that isn't just playing fucking solo queue. That's really good. That's really going to help, and I think that will increase retention just on the Dota client. I think fantasy betting overall is going to do that as well. You look at just some comparative metrics to the NFL, and we can even just Google some numbers. Let's see. I should have Googled this before I started, but the amount of money in fantasy football for like NFL is insane. Way more than there is in the actual NFL itself. And I think that's good. That's part of what fuels that discussion of people, talking in the workplace and, just having some sort of activity to bond over that still involves the sport or the game or the players or whatever. So broad strokes, I think it's kind of a good thing. But it's unfortunate right now. There's this like rush to get in while you still can. And obviously places like Vulcun have that first mover advantage. There's a lot of folks that have not a big history in fantasy betting, will kind of just play around with it. They've started on Vulcun. It'll probably stay there unless one that's way better pops up. Then there's the hardcore grinders that will just follow whichever one has the best margins. And then there will be this battle of, okay, one has 20% rake, this one has 18, this one has 17, and there will be this battle for who can have the lowest amount of rake and take the hardcore grinders. There's all sorts of little metrics that come in. Broad strokes, I think it's good, but Mark Cuban, he's one of the guys that's on the what's that show, Shark Tank. He's one of those guys that really silly entrepreneurial show. It's actually disgusting the amount of times I've said to people, "Oh yeah, I have a degree in entrepreneurship," and they go, "Oh, is that like Shark Tank? Yeah, that show where they go, that show?" I'm like, "Oh, for fuck's sake." It's kind of like Shark Tank. I see what you're going for in the sense that people make sales pitches, but in real life, it's not really like that. There aren't just people sitting on a panel and they yell at you because you don't have, some pro forma financial form that you don't have, and you only have this one opportunity to say, hey, this is, you can't just come back later with your improved business plan. I don't know. I don't like that they add drama to the whole thing. I've seen a few episodes where they go back and forth, and one person's asking them a question, they start to answer, and someone else interrupts them and says, no, that's not what's important. Do you have a distribution plan? They start to answer that one, and then the first guy says, all right, you know what? You're not going to take me seriously. I'm pulling out. My money's gone. It's like, well, you guys are just douchebags. This has nothing to do with being entrepreneurial or having a good idea. It has to do with sucking corporate dick at this point. But I digress here. Enough about Shark Tank. Mark Cuban's one of the douchebags that's on that show. And I think he's raised, what is it, a $7 million? There's $10 million in venture capital going into Unicorn, his new betting site, which is already up and operational. So there's a lot of money getting invested in it right now. Obviously, some will sink, some will float. I think we'll probably end up with like 1 or 2 of these betting sites that'll be really premier. Alpha Draft is already out there. It's an oddly competitive market. So we'll see. Now, there is a positive byproduct out of this, which people seem to forget about and get hung up on. There's a lot of folks that, for example, that I read on the Reddit threads, oh, Vulcan coming in here doing all, betting is so bad and all this shit. And even if you don't like betting or you think fantasy betting is a bad thing or whatever the reason is that you don't like it, it's still good to have people that want to come in and spend money on creating content. And that is something that Vulcun was doing with that show, where there was a budget for that. Oh, we can pay guests, we're paying everybody that's a part of this show. And that is a good byproduct. I'm not saying having unlimited betting sites and they're great sponsors. You don't want everything to be just every tournament to be sponsored by a betting site and you're constantly just blasting. You don't want esports to become just go bet here, spend your paycheck on a chance to win more money around the games that you love. You don't want everything to be sellouty around that, but there are positive byproducts if these organizations want to come in and sponsor positive parts of the community, support the players, support the infrastructures, support the content creators. People like Toffees don't make a lot of money, and the more organizations that come in that want to support that kind of content can help increase the production value, increase that whole breadth of show content that we have in the esports scene in general, and particularly in the Dota scene where it's rather underdeveloped. StarCraft 2 had State of the Game for a really long time. League of Legends had State of the League for a long time. Counter-Strike has had some other shows that I'm not privy to. But most other scenes have some kind of a main show. There's even the MOBA Weekly, that shitty Complexity show that they did like 2 or 3 years ago. At least that was something. Dota 2 had Talk Dota for a little while, but there weren't really that many episodes, and it wasn't long, ongoing, and stable enough to really be that one show that everyone looks to for your kind of weekly Dota news and drama to be hashed out. Even in the studio, it was good for what it was during that run, but it didn't go long enough to have that really long history of credibility, I guess you could say, for lack of a better word. So I guess this whole long ramble is to say that there are some positive byproducts to all these betting sites coming in. I wanted to shout out Vulcun for including me in their project. Hopefully they'll find a way to kind of re-break into Dota 2 and sponsor more content, and if they do, I would be happy to be a part of it. So I'm proud of the 2 episodes we did, the Mangoes and Tangos. If you haven't seen the PPD thing, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can check it out on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/ZyoriTV1. The link is also down below. On the Twitch page there, where most of you guys are watching. So there we go. Cool stuff. Going to move forward now. I want to mention this whole Anne Prag bullshit. We're going to play popcorn here. I've got a bunch of just little points that I want to hit and make mention of. I feel like there's not much to elaborate on for this whole Anne Prag thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Richard Lewis broke another great story. The title is The True Story of Anne Prag, the esports writer who never existed. It's very similar to that Magic Amy kind of bullshit. Basically, in League of Legends, there was this writer known as Anne Prag that was very good. She was known for having a very analytical style, understanding the game very well. She had been offered many jobs for more full-time journalism type gigs. She had been oddly mysterious in terms of, I didn't really know who she was, hadn't really seen too many pictures, hadn't really been on too many video feeds, kind of a deal. But everybody just enjoyed the content so much that it was never really much of a concern. Turns out she was an invention. It's just a made-up person. It's a straight-up catfish type deal. The catfish era, indeed. It's kind of ridiculous that the same content created by a guy versus the same content created by a girl just gets leagues of. It's just a completely different league of interpretation. If Day 9 was a girl, it would just rock everyone's world at how amazing there's this female that's actually good at these games that can provide this level of analysis. And for a guy, it's just like, oh yeah, well, we would expect that because it's like 90% guys around here. Come on, guys. Hey, guy, yeah, we're all guys. All right, cool. Apparently this guy Deadspin, he was like dating some girl, and then they broke up, and this Anne Prag is some sort of a creation hybrid of his ex-girlfriend's personality and what he would want to be if he was a girl, mixed together to be this person that was just a cool online personality. She even started submitting articles to a site that Richard Lewis ran. There's a really long article about it. I'll go ahead and link it here. You can read about the details. I don't have much to add other than the fucking internet, man. This catfish stuff is probably going to happen more and more. I'm not surprised to see it popping up. I mean, the veil of anonymity, man. There's weird shit that happens in the coconut of humans when you don't have to show your face, when you can just let some of your thoughts flow out and you can be a new person. People do weird stuff, and I always wonder with these kind of things, what's your end game? What's the plan here? because for all of these kind of gigs, you're trying to grow a brand, you're trying to grow your popularity, and eventually you hit a point where you'll be so popular that people want to see you. You got to start talking. You got to be a person. And then what do? You just keep turning down jobs and writing articles as a mystery person? Like, how do you pull that off? How do you go professional Mrs. Doubtfire? Um, I guess for a lot of folks, it doesn't really start that way. It's really one of two things. It's either some sort of emotional disconnect where, a lot of times the catfish folks are very lonely, very disconnected, and it's the only way that they know how to get attention. So it's this weird sort of, they get this odd sort of sadistic pleasure out of manipulating people, and it's also a little bit risque and wrong. And there's that weird sexual element to the traditional term of the catfish. So there's that side of it, and then there's also the, oh, well, I just want to kind of try this out. It's sort of more of the experimental. It's less of the emotional disconnect and more of the I wonder if, I wonder what would. And you don't really think, well, what happens 6 months from now when I have 80,000 Twitter followers and my articles are hot shit on Reddit, and this is actually a position that I could monetize. Now what do I do? When you start it, you're not thinking it's going to work out. You're just kind of fucking around and having fun pretending to be a girl, I guess. I don't know. I've never really gotten into the whole pretending to be someone of the opposite sex on the internet thing. That was never really, my most recent serious girlfriend that I lived with, and I say it like it was recent. It was years ago. It was like 3 years ago. I don't know. When did we break up? 3 years ago? Time, huh? We met on World of Warcraft. We met in person twice before we moved in together. She moved cross-state from Florida to New Jersey, and then we lived together for like 2 years. Fucking weird shit. Like, that doesn't really happen. I would be afraid to do that in the modern era of catfishing and internet trickery. It wasn't that long ago. It was like 2010 when we first started talking, but there was just this organic nature of, I'm just playing WoW, you're playing WoW. We started chit-chatting, we call on the phone, or, hey, you're cool, I'm cool, let's meet, let's see if this is real, and it turns out it is. Very bizarre and very strange. I don't understand the other side of it, and in retrospect, I feel lucky to have not been catfished. I think I tuck my dick behind my legs and pretend I'm a girl all the time. That Horses song, man. Sometimes you got to do you. Nothing wrong with that. It's all good. It's just weird when you start engaging with other people via the internet through the veil of lies, where it gets weird. I think most of us have seen that catfish show. So just another good bit of esports drama. This is one some of y'all may not have heard of. It is a League of Legends drama, so I know that's taboo over in Dota. So if you're interested in the article, check it out. I did drop that link just a little bit ago. So all right, pressing forward here. What other popcorn do we have to talk about? So I've got two big topics I want to mention. One is very short, and one will probably be a little bit longer, and will take up the rest of the podcast here. And that last one, of course, is Ellen Pao, for all of you Reddit enthusiasts. So first up, I just want to mention Rosewater, that movie that John Oliver did. Absolutely top-notch. It's ridiculously good. It's on Netflix. I'm sure it's available on the internet somewhere. You can find it. Basically, it's based on a true story. And at the time, I remember very clearly when The Daily Show was going on and Jon Stewart just said, hey, guys, I got to go do a movie. I don't know, see you later. John Oliver is going to take over, and Stewart just kind of fucked off. He peaced out for, 30 days, 40 days, 50 days, some pretty long period of time. John Oliver takes over. He really carries the show pretty well. That sets up for him to go to HBO to do Last Week Tonight. Jon Stewart comes back pretty shortly after. He announces, hey guys, I'm retiring. Daily Show's over. It's been a great run. See you later. And it's almost over for him. He's got, 2 weeks left now? These are crazy times for Daily Show enthusiasts, Jon Stewart fan straights, what have you. So it turns out that movie he did, Rosewater, is about this Iranian journalist who was living in the UK. He went back to Iran in 2004 to cover the elections. He ends up filming some footage, getting involved with some people that he's interviewing, and doing a Daily Show interview with the Jason Jones correspondent while he's there. And all of this kind of gets the attention of the Iranian government, and they end up bringing him for questioning, and they hold him for 120 days. He's interrogated and tortured and all this kind of stuff, and he's just a journalist. And it's just because he's released footage that in America you wouldn't even think twice about having those journalistic rights. But over there, there's a lot of suppression and all this kind of stuff. And It's kind of a crime against humanity. And the craziest thing about it is they used the interview that he shot for The Daily Show, which of course is a joke, as evidence that he was a spy. Jason Jones is there, and he's kind of dressed up all crazy, and he says, well, I'm a terrorist. He's doing that sarcastic Daily Show shtick, and they actually don't get it. They don't have that kind of TV comedy over there. And they're showing him the footage, and they're asking him about Newsweek. They're telling him that Newsweek is this Jewish-run organization where it's a front for the CIA, and he's actually a spy, and he's a writer for this fake Newsweek magazine, and he's trying to explain to them that it's just a basic publication that's not even that good. He doesn't even care about it that much. Like, you're gonna kill me over Newsweek? It's not even a good publication, dude. At least kill me over something that's worthwhile. It's a really crazy story, and it makes me wonder how much of that just whole experience has fucked with Stewart enough that he's like, there are actually some repercussions of what we're doing here. We have a big global impact. Our voice is broad and loud, and we kind of fucked this guy's life up a little bit by accident. It's hard to imagine that not fucking with him. It's really crazy. The movie is really well done. It's based off the memoirs that the individual, his last name was Bahari, that was held captive, wrote after he was released. There was a big American push to get him out. So he's out now. The story has a very happy ending. But the movie is really well done. It's not shot like a documentary. It's shot like an actual movie. So the characters are introduced. It flows very well. You'll recognize a lot of the actors and actresses. They're the types that you don't know their names, but you've seen them in a whole bunch of stuff. The mom with the son named Beirut in that one season of 24, like season 4, season 5, she's in it. I don't know her name, but I recognize her from 24. See you later, Pie. It's good. It's great shit. Watch it. It's like 4.9 out of 5 on Netflix, and it should be 5 out of 5. Absolutely great stuff. It's pretty heart-wrenching. It just gives you a lot of perspective on other parts of the world that are much different from America and Europe and other first world countries where most of us are from. So, all right, last but not least here, let's talk about Reddit and good old Ellen Pao, the interim CEO for the giant site known as Reddit, the Goliath, known as the front page of the internet. So this all kind of started with the banning of the, what was it, Fat Hate? Was that the subreddit? Basically, this subreddit that was focused around posting pictures of fat people and then just fucking slamming them, just laying into them and going as harsh as you can. I think it was Fat People Hate. Maybe that's what it was. The subreddit got taken down. And that might not sound very controversial in a vacuum, but you have to think about how many subreddits there are and how many subreddits there are that are about hate speech. A great example, reddit.com/r/gasthekikes. What a great subreddit there. My oh me. It's terrible. That's really awful stuff. And that is still live. There's a Ku Klux Klan homage subreddit. There's all sorts of terrible hate subreddits out there that are still up and running. And they focused on this one thing in particular. So that sort of started an outcry. Reddit doesn't like censorship and things that don't make sense and all this kind of, Reddit's not having that. And I guess Reddit really likes to hate on fat people as well. I guess that's their right as a Redditor, as I came in here to really get to be a bully. And Ellen Pao was one of the folks that was attributed to this whole deal, this change in policy, or as Ellen Pao put it, an extension of an already existing policy. And that existing policy is bullying, harassment. You're not allowed to have a focused effort to bully someone. You're not allowed to dox somebody on Reddit. You can't post people's personal information. You can't just go on a revenge porn tirade on Reddit. That's expressly forbidden. You can't just use it as a platform to really just harass an individual. And it's weird to draw this line and distinction between harassing an individual versus harassing a group of people. So it's okay for Nazis to have a subreddit that's about a general hatred towards a group but not a singleton individual, versus one fat person's picture being posted and then a bunch of strangers laying into it. you can understand it on a very individual case-by-case basis in a sense of, you can't dox people. I think that's a really good example. But doxing, by the way, is when you find somebody's personal information and post it, like somebody posting my address so that you can get hate mail, that kind of shit. Of course, without your permission. But it's just a weird distinction to make. And it also seems impossible to police. They increased their staff to deal with singleton reports of people getting bullied on Reddit. I'm like, well, that's great, but you're sort of fighting. There's a great analogy here about fighting the ocean with fire or some shit. It seems like you're bringing a knife to a gunfight a little bit. And of course, there's still all this, well, Nazi hate speech, that's not okay, but we're all right. And there was an interview that Ellen Pao did that kind of struck me as odd, where it was on NPR, and the guy doing the interview cited the Gas the Kikes subreddit specifically and said, well, isn't this a little bit worse, though? Isn't this, even though it's not targeted at a group, or not targeted as individuals, individuals are still impacted by this kind of hate speech? He said, well, we still want to be a place where people are encouraged to have views that are different from the norm. It's like, well, that sounds kind of good, but that can mean a lot of things. And that is where freedom gets a little fuzzy. We've talked about this concept a lot on the podcast, about freedom means that you're giving people the freedom to do things you don't like. A free sexual society means that gay people can get married. You might not like it, but you got to let them do it because that's part of what freedom is, right? It's the same thing with free speech, but you're now starting to draw that line of, well, we're going to police some things and not others, and people don't fucking like that shit. So, all right, let's move forward. Everyone's already all uppity about this. She's already the shit sticks. So, where shit really hits the fan is where the person in charge of the AMA subreddit gets fired. And apparently the way they do AMAs on Reddit is there's one person that interfaces with all the celebrities and all the stuff, and organizes the whole thing and just sets it up. Basically, a full-time liaison for that whole deal. And it was a full-time employee of Reddit. This individual, what the hell was her name? The coordinator behind the Ask Me Anything. I think it was Victoria something or other. I'm sure chat's going to blow up with everyone. Let me just Control F. Victoria. What's her fucking last name? Come on, Victoria Taylor. That's it, I think. She was fired, and they didn't cite a reason. So the whole the whole AMA subreddit went down because they just couldn't run AMAs without a coordinator to do it. So in protest of this terrible, well, you fired this person without a plan to keep the AMA subreddit going for the next few days, we're going to black out all these subreddits. It was the black, what was the hashtag, like Reddit riot, everyone's going crazy. And there were quite a few, like over 1,000 subreddits were blacked out where it just said, this is temporarily down. The moderators are currently editing or whatever the fuck the little screen says. And that was the protest. Of course, it was stupid and overblown. It lasted for like 12 hours. They got some of the porn ones to step up. That was kind of cool. And people were just really mad. Apparently, Pal has just posted earlier today. I missed this. As I was Googling around right before the podcast, we screwed up. Not just on July 2nd, but over the past several years. We haven't communicated well, and we have surprised the moderators in the community with big changes. We have apologized and made promises to you, the moderators and the community over the years, time and time again, and we haven't delivered on them. When you've had feedback or requests, we haven't always been responsive. The mods in the community have lost trust in me and in us, the administrators of Reddit. Wow, she's actually apologizing and breaking down here. So everybody really fucking hates her. She seems to be pretty poor at PR. She had some scandal in Silicon Valley where she was working for this venture capital firm for a pretty long time and didn't get promoted as quickly as she would have liked, so she filed a gender discrimination lawsuit for like $16 million. She lost. That kind of sucks. So it makes you wonder a little bit, like, is she after money? Is she just trying to make headlines? Is she really of high integrity? Of course, the cynical folks that are like, she's a money grubber. She's just out for a quick buck. She's not a good, not good in general. The hate is pretty serious. It's got to be shitty to be her right now. And one question that I haven't had answers is, how did she end up as the interim CEO of Reddit? It seems like an odd pairing. It seems like she hasn't done a particularly good job of empathizing with the needs and the wants of the site. It seems more like she wants to push the site to be this kind of mainstream, slightly watered down, less organic version of what it is, and it doesn't seem like that's what the user base wants. Where did she come from? I don't really. He's talking to everything about how shadow ban happy they are. Oh God, don't even get me started about shadow bans. I personally think shadow banning is one of the worst forms of moderation there is. It's atrocious. It's terrible, and it's counterproductive. The whole point of moderation is to get the crap off your forums, but also to teach people how to use the forums correctly. And I say correctly because that context means whatever you want it to mean for your website. You know, Team Liquid has a different set of standards than what Gosu Gamers does for their Reddit, than what Join Dota does for their forums, and that's what makes it cool for you to choose different sites that have different rules and expectations for quality of posts. That's good. When you're just shadow banning people, then they're just posting mindlessly and nobody can see it. That doesn't help them understand why this content was not of the proper nature for the venue that you're using it for. It's just stupid, and it's infuriating to be on the other side. It just pisses people off. Why not just actually ban people and explain what they were banned for rather than doing this random, especially if you post on a lot of subreddits. That's the stupidest thing about shadow banning on Reddit. A power user on Reddit will post on a lot of different subreddits. So if you get shadow banned, one day you just realize, nobody's replying to my shit. What's going on here? And you type in the little thing, you go, you're shadow banned. Well, what Reddit was it for? What post was it? What did I do? Was it an accident? Can I appeal to someone? Oh, man, who do I talk to? But it's fucking idiocy. So there is, again, a lot of these issues there, things that are just worth bringing up and kind of having a back and forth with someone about. Would have been a good podcast to have a +1. But she's in the dumper. I guess she's apologizing. The whole thing's a mess. The Reddit community is always interesting with these kind of weird dramas because they're just so loud and uppity. I always enjoy watching them get mad about the weirdest things. You know, it's just, oh my God, she banned the fat people hate subreddit. Everybody riot. Boycott Reddit. It's like, all right, whoa. I agree this is inconsistent. This feels a little arbitrary and weird in the context of what Reddit does, but let's pump the brakes, all right? There are still bigger issues at foot here. There's still global warming and world hunger that we have to tackle. Like, come on, guys. Let's be reasonable here. Ooh, okay, great. Fucking Reddit. Well, could you expect anything different, right? And I guess that's where we'll leave it. So, all right, going to cut this podcast a little bit short here, guys, just shy of the 60-minute mark. Thank you so much for joining us for Zyori Podcast number 75. Planning on being a lot more consistent with the podcast over the next month or two. Monday is probably going to be our main day to do it. 2.5 weeks till we ship off for TI. Super excited, and I'm going to try to stream a fair bit before I head off during my boot camp period. Guys, if you enjoyed the podcast, please find it on iTunes. I'll drop a link for you here in just a second. But that is the best way to support the podcast, aside from subscribing. We got a couple of new subs tonight. Big shout out to both of you, guys or girls. Not sure which you are, but happy to have you. Nonetheless, it's really awesome enjoying the support and enjoying getting some streams out. So we'll see you guys on the next stream. There's the link to iTunes. Rate, subscribe, and comment over there. It really does help me out. So be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other. We'll catch y'all on the next podcast.